The dark secrets of Fredegund, when a queen's love turns to betrayal. Shocking scandals revealed. In the heart of the ancient kingdom of Neustria, whispers curled through the darkened halls of the cathedral like smoke from an unholy fire. Fredegund, once hailed as a paragon of beauty and grace, was now the object of chilling rumors. Secrets so dark they chilled the very marrow of those who dared to speak of them. They said she could command the shadows, that her gaze could pierce the very fabric of truth. And yet, no one could have fathomed the lengths to which her love would twist into betrayal, draping the court in a shroud of dread. Every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an ominous glow over the castle walls, strange sounds echoed through the servants' quarters. Some claimed to hear whispers, a terror voice that beckoned from the depths of the castle tombs. Others trembled at the sight of flickering lights in the tower, where no candle was lit. The air was thick with tension, as if the very stones of the castle held their breath, waiting for something to crack, something dangerous. But it wasn't just the supernatural that put the villagers on edge. They spoke of a betrayal so profound it shook the kingdom's foundation. Fredegund's love for her husband, King Chilperic, was said to have morphed into an obsession, twisting her heart like a serpent coiled around its prey. Her appetite for power grew ravenous, and those who crossed her path met with grim fates. Eyes widened in fear and shock when they recalled how one brave soul had dared to confront her about her sudden cruelty only to disappear without a trace. Just then, a sharp gasp echoed through the room, a faint sound, yet it cut through the tension like a knife. Morning bells tolled. The air grew heavier, pregnant with foreboding. A shiver danced down the spines of all who gathered. What secret lay buried beneath layers of silk and deceit? What was the truth behind those locked doors? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With hearts pounding, the onlookers leaned closer, intoxicated by the mingling of fear and curiosity. The rumors were explosive, but perched on the edge of revelation, they felt an unbearable longing for the truth. How far would Fredegund go to protect her throne? Who else would fall victim to her twisted desires? The night thickened, and the promise of scandal electrified the atmosphere. Would her love lead to ruin, or would she emerge unscathed, her enemies silenced forever? The answers danced just beyond reach, as shadows loomed and the darkness beckoned. The courtyard was alive with the murmurings of the villagers. They traded tales of the queen, eager to catch whispers from each other that could unveil the mysteries plaguing Neustria. But every story had a darker ending than the last, and every night deepened the shadows of fear that crept through the streets like a thief. Through the fog of rumors, a figure emerged: Hildegard, Queen's handmaiden, burdened with secrets only the walls of Fredegund's chambers had heard. Her heart raced as she darted toward the castle, every footstep echoing with the weight of treachery that began to corrupt her very soul. She knew the truth about Fredegund, a truth she wished she could erase, but it clung to her like a damp cloak. Crouching by the great oak door of the queen's private chamber, Hildegard heard muffled voices. Fredegund and another woman spoke in urgent tones that set her nerves on fire. Curiosity and dread twisted together, and she leaned closer, straining to catch snippets of their conversation. They must be eliminated, it's the only way. Fredegund's voice was cold, laced with a fierceness that sent shivers skittering down Hildegard's spine. The other woman gasped softly, perhaps in shock, before replying. But what about the king? He will find out. Hildegard's breath caught in her throat. The king? Had Fredegund placed her own beloved atop a list of those she deemed a threat? Since becoming his queen, Fredegund had embraced a mantle of glory, but now that glory was revealed as a deceptive facade, a mask hiding a monstrous hunger for power. The door creaked slightly, and Hildegard flinched, her heart pounding as she resolved to stay hidden. What would happen if Fredegund sensed her presence? Would she join the ranks of those who had vanished? Suddenly, the chamber quieted. Hildegard held her breath, straining to hear a sound. Fredegund had a penchant for violence that grew darker with each day, yet here, in this moment, she displayed a different side, calculating, plotting, even fearful. Then, sharply, the spell broke. Hildegard. Fredegund's voice sliced the silence, a sharp knife through the still air. I know you're there. Panic surged in Hildegard's body, but her feet felt frozen to the ground. No escape. No choice but to reveal herself. The door swung open, and the world blurred as she stepped inside. Fredegund stood tall, her eyes burning with an intensity that demanded submission. Were you eavesdropping? Fredegund demanded, but beneath the fierce demeanor, Hildegard glimpsed a flicker of vulnerability, a fleeting moment of a woman on the precipice of madness. I wanted to know the truth, Hildegard stammered, her voice trembling slightly, the weight of her words heavy with fear and resolve. Fredegund's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, silence reigned, filling the space between them with an electric charge. The air grew dense. It crackled with impending doom like a storm ready to erupt. Truth? Fredegund echoed softly, leaning closer, her smile deceptively sweet. What if I told you the truth could cost you your life? Hildegard's pulse raced, and she fought against every urge to flee. The walls of the castle felt too close, constricting her very breath. Would this be where her story ended? Yet, before she could formulate a response, the shadows behind Fredegund shifted, and dread clutched at her heart. Tell me, dear Hildegard. Fredegund's tone dripped with sinister confidence. What would you be willing to sacrifice for love? The question hung like a thick fog, casting uncertainty over the two women. Hildegard's mind raced. The answer weighed heavily, and as the chilling truth settled in, she realized she was much deeper in this game of shadows than she ever intended. As the night deepened, their fates entwined, one hungered for power, the other struggled for survival. With every word exchanged, the hounds of betrayal grew closer, eager for blood. What price would Fredegund demand to claim the throne? And would Hildegard's quest for truth cost her more than just her silence? Hildegard's heart thundered in her chest as the weight of Fredegund's question hung in the air. The flickering candles cast ominous shadows that danced around her, magnifying the queen's fierce visage. Love? What did love mean in the context of power? She thought of the king, a man of honor she had sworn to serve, torn by the twisted ambitions swirling about him. I would do anything for love, Hildegard finally managed to say, her voice a whisper edged with desperation. Oh, how sweet, Fredegund purred, taking a step back, her sly smile betraying her true intentions. But would you be willing to sacrifice those you hold dear? Your loyalty to your king, your conscience? Hildegard's gut twisted with dread. The truth she sought felt like a double-edged sword, and Fredegund had drawn blood. She had seen the way the villagers cowered under the queen's newfound authority, the edges of their joy fraying. The queen's power extended beyond the castle's walls, seeping into the very fabric of their lives. But sacrifice? It smothered the already thin air around them. Sacrifice? Hildegard faltered, needing to stall, needing air. What do you mean? The queen stepped closer, her eyes narrowing, studying Hildegard with a predator's keen gaze. Do you see the truth now? Love can be a weapon. It can be a chain, binding you to a fate worse than death. I know you've discovered my plans, dear Hildegard, and that makes you a liability. I would never betray you, my queen. Hildegard blurted out, panic flooding her words. You misunderstand my loyalty. I want to help you. Help, Fredegund repeated, her smile transforming into a sharp grin. Help only comes at a price. You must choose your side, my dear. The king, oh sweet love, or me, the true ruler of Neustria. I can grant you power beyond your wildest dreams, but must first extinguish the flame of anyone who stands in my way. Hildegard felt the ground beneath her tremble. A chilling vision of blood and betrayal engulfed her mind. But the king is weak, Fredegund spat, her voice filled with venom. If you continue to cling to him, you doom us both. I offer you strength. Imagine together, we could reign supreme. But that supremacy felt tainted, like a dark fog clouding her judgment. An inner battle raged within her, loyalty to the fallen king or allegiance to an ambitious queen who wore a mask of affection. Fredegund's hold tightened like a noose, and in that moment, realization locked in. I will not be part of your heartless games, she declared, trembling but resolute. Fredegund's laughter echoed, sharp and unyielding. You think you have a choice? In a game of shadows, so few do. You're dancing on the edge of a knife, Hildegard. A sudden sound shattered the tension. The door burst open, and a soldier stumbled in, panting heavily. My queen! The king, he seeks you. He is coming. For a brief moment, the wicked glint in Fredegund's eyes faded, replaced by a flash of genuine fear. I knew he would come for me. She hissed through clenched teeth. You must decide, dear Hildegard. Will you stand with me against him, or will you rush to warn the man fated to ruin it all? Hildegard's heart sank. The weight of the decision pressed down painfully. Everything was spiraling out of control, and the darkness seemed to loom closer. No longer was her life merely about serving, it was about survival amidst a choice that could shatter everything she had ever known. As the distant echoes of the king's approach thundered through the halls, she felt the walls closing in. Could she confront this treachery? Or would she be swallowed whole? In that moment of impending chaos, the fragile thread of fate lay in her hands. What if the truth was far worse than she ever imagined? Every heartbeat echoed her doubt as an unyielding silence stretched between the three of them, heavy with unspoken truths and impending doom. What would she decide, and could love thrive in such a pit of betrayal? Would she send a warning or plunge deeper into the shadows? The hourglass of her fate was running out. Hildegard's pulse quickened as she weighed her options. Fredegund loomed over her, a tempest of desires masked in elegance. The soldier's warning echoing in her ears felt like an impending doom. Time stood still, suspended between loyalty and betrayal. The king drew nearer, she could hear his footsteps echoing in the stone corridor. Each step struck against her resolve, crashing louder than her thundering heart. What if I made the wrong choice? A bead of sweat trickled down her back, and a lump formed in her throat. Fredegund's eyes sparkled with wicked understanding. You stand at a crossroads, Hildegard. A moment can define an eternity. Will you embrace power, or will you be another footnote in history? The queen stepped back, arms akimbo, powerful yet poised, as though reveling in the moment. You can remain a pawn, or you can become a queen beside me. The air thickened with tension, the unshakable dread of the outcome burning at the back of her skull. Hildegard glanced toward the door, where the shadows deepened, clinging to the threshold. Was the king really a beacon of hope, or just the beginning of destruction? Would warning him seal their fate? Save your breath, Fredegund continued, her voice low and dangerous. He will never listen to you. He'll think you're but a traitor, caught in a web of lies. You'd be cast out to the wolves. The queen's demeanor shifted, her provocations turning personal, as if aiming to tear at the very fabric of Hildegard's heart. Hildegard's mind raced. The love she had sworn no longer shimmered with pure intentions. The king's wisdom had flaws, and every embrace now felt tinged with desperation. But Fredegund, your path it's riddled with darkness, she said softly, almost pleading. What you offer is power through bloodshed, not love. Oh, child, Fredegund said, feigning sadness, you still don't see it. Love without sacrifice is a deluded myth. I offer you everything the world at your feet. But the king? He'll kill the dreams of our future. You know this deep down. Footsteps grew louder, a hurried mix of passion and authority. The soldiers were advancing fast. Please, Hildegard, choose as I have, Fredegund whispered, her voice now a seductive caress. Save us both from his weakness. In that moment, a flood of memories flashed before Hildegard, the laughter shared with villagers, the stories spun by firelight, the king's earnest promises of a brighter future. What have you done to him? She breathed, her voice carrying the weight of disbelief. Fredegund's smile twisted, revealing jagged edges. You will soon know. He has no idea what hangs in the balance. As the door rattled ominously, Hildegard knew she was running out of time. Would she side with the dark ambition of a queen who saw love as a weapon? Or would she risk everything to pull the king back from the edge? With each second that bled into desperation, the choice loomed. Should she flee into the truth and risk losing it all? Or could her strength ignite a flicker of hope amid the chaos? The door finally burst open, revealing the king framed in dim light, his face taut with fury. He shouted her name, voice tinged with an urgent need that merely magnified the tension in the room. Choose, Fredegund hissed under her breath, icy fingers poised to strike. Hildegard's gaze darted between the king's fierce loyalty, his love shining through the storm, and the dark allure offered by Fredegund. Her next action could alter the fate of Neustria and her own heart. As her breath caught like a snare, a stark realization washed over her. In this tangled web of desires, there was a deeper shadow yet to unveil. What sinister game did Fredegund truly play? What deeper betrayal lurked just out of sight? The path was growing ever darker, and with it, the stakes raised higher than she could ever anticipated. The king's eyes bored into Hildegard's, filled with confusion and rage. You! He spat, clenching his fists at his sides. What have you done? You've been with her. Stop! Hildegard shouted, desperation rising like a tide. Listen to me first. Her voice cracked, echoing off the stone walls, drawing an unintentional gasp from Fredegund. The moment stretched long between them, each second heavy with terror as the king's gaze flickered between the two women. She could see the conflict raging within him, the loyalty to his queen battling the panic coursing through the room. Fredegund moved like a serpent, gracefully slipping between them. You dare try to rift our bond, foolish girl? She laughed, a chilling sound that sent shivers down Hildegard's spine. This is what you offer? Confusion? Despair? Your love is twisted, Fredegund. Hildegard advocated, heart racing. You've intertwined power with manipulation, and you threaten everything we've built. The queen's expression hardened into an unforgiving mask, betraying a hint of the fury roiling beneath her surface. Is it not your own nature to crave the power I offer? Perhaps it's just your fear that keeps you from claiming it. What power is born from bloodshed? Hildegard shot back, fists clenched, anchored by the truth that simmered inside her. True power comes from the heart and the trust of our people. Not by enslaving them. Fredegund stepped forward, her face mere inches from Hildegard's. You're naive, sweet girl. This world isn't shaped by dreams, it's built by the spine of those who can wield darkness. You stand unarmed in a battle of wits. Do you really want to defy me? As if struck by lightning, the old memories of laughter and warmth returned to Hildegard. They cut through the thick tension like a dagger, and she could almost hear the villagers chanting the king's name. A pledge she had made, a promise to protect the fragile threads of hope. But deep down, a gnawing worry persisted. What shadow lurked around the king? Had Fredegund woven her spells so tightly that he was already ensnared? Enough games! The king roared, stepping forward with renewed confidence. I didn't come here for riddles and accusations. I demand the truth. His gaze flicked again to Hildegard. Now! Tell me everything. Hildegard hesitated, glancing towards Fredegund, who stood like a tempest ready to unleash its fury. The weight of the choice pressed down on her chest. The soldiers at the door were still, but she could see in their eyes the anticipation of violence, the scent of betrayal in the air. Fredegund her heart raced, but Fredegund interrupted, throwing her head back, laughing again, this time with mockery. You think you can win him over with mere words? You're misguided, Hildegard. The king's fate is sealed. Before she could process, Fredegund snapped her fingers. An unseen force surged through the air, a rush of chaos, swirling around her. A menacing silence enveloped them, and the lights flickered as if the very gods held their breath. The shadows wrapped tighter around Hildegard, but she stood firm. Stop! She exclaimed fiercely, her voice steady despite the compressing pressure. You don't have control over him. But Fredegund's grin only widened, a predator savoring the moment of vulnerability. Oh, how wrong you are. His heart is mine, woven into my design. All it takes is a little push. Before the horrifying implications fully dawned on Hildegard, another shadow crossed the threshold, a guard, pale and breathless, stumbling into the room. My lord, there's trouble at the gates. He gasped, eyes wide with shock. An army approaches. Suddenly, the air thickened with tension, completely shifted. The king turned, jaw clenched and fierce. We must prepare. Fredegund's amusement vanished, replaced by a fierce intensity that radiated danger. What army? She challenged. We cannot afford to be divided. Time shattered. The choice was now more than personal, it was entwined with the fate of their kingdom. The frantic fear sunk in, knowing the real battle loomed ahead. Hildegard's heart raced as the impending dawning chaos threatened to engulf them all. What if the army she could feel was one that Fredegund had summoned? What if it was all part of her plan? In that moment, with shadows closing in, a new resolve gripped her. No longer was it just her heart at stake, it was Neustria. But could she rally the king and unite against an enemy that was as much his lover as it was a threat? Tell me the truth. Hildegard implored the king, her voice cutting through the anxiety. What lies beneath the throne? With the world poised on the edge of calamity, Hildegard understood, the haunting echoes of love and betrayal wound tighter than ever, and the final reckoning was just beginning. The king's eyes narrowed, a storm brewing within them. The air crackled with tension, heavy as a war drum. The moment stretched, the silence cutting like a knife. You demand the truth, Hildegard? He asked, his voice low and dangerous. Then you better be prepared for what it means. Fredegund's fingers twitched, a hint of magic swirling around them, her presence felt like a looming shadow. You'll regret this, my love, she murmured, emotion spilling forth masking her icy demeanor. What do you expect to gain from this foolishness? Hildegard stood firm, swallowing hard as her instinct screamed at her to flee. The strength of her resolve was bolstered by the fate of her people. I expect your trust, my king. If we're going to survive tonight, we need each other. We cannot let her divide us. Divide? Fredegund spat, her eyes flashing like daggers. You speak as if I'm the one who revels in rifts. I am the one fighting for this kingdom's strength. By sowing fear? Hildegard shot back, her voice steady despite the tempest around her. The king's jaw tightened, wrestling with the truths tumbling from Hildegard's lips. Enough. We must focus on the army. Hildegard, you might be right. A united front is our only chance. He turned toward the door, voice booming as he called for his captain. But before Hildegard could feel the relief wash over her, Fredegund stepped closer, her face twisted in fury. You're not listening, dear husband. This girl seeks to undermine everything you've built. Her presence alone will tear us apart. Hildegard felt her heart lurch. The queen's influence was palpable, a poison that seeped into the air. No! She cried, stepping forward. This kingdom will not be forged in hatred. Fredegund, you and I can find common ground. We can protect what matters most. Fredegund laughed, its bitter edge slicing through the fabric of hope. And what makes you think I am interested in common ground? I have fought tooth and nail for my place in this home. Except your battles are not for peace, Hildegard countered, her voice rising with urgency. They're for control. Just then, the captain stormed in, ragged breath betraying urgency. Sire! The enemy has breached the gates. They're upon us. Panic flickered in the king's eyes. He turned back to Hildegard, desperation mingling with the tension already taut like a bowstring. Prepare the men. He ordered. Then, quieter, he added, what do we know of this army? From the corner, Fredegund caught his eye, a shadow stretching between them. You must believe me, she said softly, her expression unreadable. They'll come for you, for us. They take down kingdoms and destroy love. Hildegard's gut twisted. This was more than a fight against invading forces, it was a battle for the very core of their bond. We need a plan, she urged. We can't face this without trust. The king looked between them, the weight of the world settling heavily on his shoulders. Then let us not waste time. Fredegund, gather our strongest allies. Hildegard, you will rally the townsfolk. Hildegard could hardly breathe. What of you? You can't fight alone. He clenched his fists, eyes blazing. I shall lead our men into battle. We will defend what we love. The air thickened again, heavy with anticipation, a quiet before a storm. They had moments left. And we will win, Fredegund added, a chilling edge to her voice. With a gesture, she summoned an energy that flickered around her fingers, a dark glow, sinister and alluring. I'll make certain of that. Hildegard staggered back, realization dawning like a cold dawn. Fredegund would unleash her magic not just for victory, but to grip the king tighter, entwining them in bonds of darkness. Ready your hearts, Hildegard warned, the urgency rising. This will not just be a battle for survival, it will test the very soul of our kingdom. The king nodded, determination sparking in his eyes as he faced the door, ready to charge into the chaos. As they prepared, tension rippled through the room. Whatever comes, he declared, energy coiling around him, we fight together. For Neustria. For love. Yet as the captain moved to gather the troops, Hildegard felt a sinister chill. Even as they geared to protect, cracks began to form in trust. Could they truly unite? Or was the battle already lost before it began? As the door opened to the impending chaos outside, Hildegard whispered, what if Fredegund has plans beyond the gates? What if we're the targets? Her heart pounded, foreboding creeping in. With night deepening, a chilling sense of dread gripped her. Would their love survive the storm on the horizon, or would the queen's dark magic twist it into shadows? Hildegard's breath quickened as she stepped back, caught between the heavy oak door and the dark magic swirling at Fredegund's fingertips. The tension in the air felt alive, a creature ready to pounce. Each heartbeat echoed like a war drum in her ears. We must hurry, she urged, casting a glance at the king, whose face hardened with determination. Time was slipping through their fingers like sand. Outside, muffled shouts broke through the chaos, men calling orders, steel clashing, and the distant sound of the enemy's war drums. Hildegard fought the urge to retreat. She would not let fear take her now. We need to unite the people, she insisted, finding strength in her own voice. We need every hand to defend the walls, every heart to stand firm. Fredegund snorted, dismissing Hildegard as if she were a mere fly buzzing around her head. You fail to understand. They won't just attack the walls, they will attack us, she hissed, her features twisting with a venomous mix of fear and rage. Your rallying cry is useless if you cannot see the enemy for what it truly is. The king stepped closer to Hildegard, the warmth of his presence grounding her. She may be trying to distract us, he said, conviction burning in his voice. Fredegund, you must know. Fredegund interrupted, raising her hands as shadows danced in the corners of the room. You're playing with fire, husband. Your trust in her could cost us everything. The captain, still breathless from his earlier report, gestured for urgency. We don't have time for this. The enemy is breaking through the outer defenses. We need to leave, now. With a nod, the king turned to Fredegund, desperation creeping into his expression. This is our last chance to put aside our differences, my queen. You need to help us gather the magic from the defenders. We cannot win without you. Fredegund's eyes narrowed dangerously, and in that brief silence, the shadows deepened around her. Help you? You would have me risk everything for a fool's gathering? Hildegard felt ice settle in her chest. Without trust, we have no hope. I know that you care for him, Fredegund. Help him because you want to protect him. Protect him? Fredegund's voice rose sharply, cracking like ice breaking apart. You think I care about mere survival? This kingdom is my life's work. He will not waver from my grasp as you attempt to pull him away. The words spiraled through Hildegard's mind, intertwining with her fear. Could Fredegund truly be this twisted with jealousy, willing to let the kingdom fall? Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from outside, and the door shook violently. They're here. The captain shouted, panic ignited in the air. The king turned to face the door, resolve like a steel blade in his spine. To the battlements. We fight for our home and for each other. Fredegund's flickering magic ignited, illuminating the darkened corners of the kingdom's chamber. I'll keep the darkest forces at bay. But you must trust me. But as Hildegard caught the edge of Fredegund's gaze, a sly smile crept onto the queen's lips. It sent a chill skimming down her spine. What was beneath the surface of that promise? She gripped the hilt of her sword, determined and scared. There was a flicker of hope that evaporated with doubt. Little did they know that beyond the gates, the enemy wasn't simply a separate army but an encroachment of much darker intentions. As they bolted out of the chamber into the wild turmoil of voices and weapons clashing, Hildegard couldn't shake off the sensation that they were walking straight into an orchestrated trap. What unspeakable power lay in the shadows with Fredegund's magic? The uncertainty gnawed at her as the first cries of battle reached them. Who would they trust when blood was spilled? A dark silhouette loomed at the edge of the courtyard, and with it, a haunting question whispered through Hildegard's mind. What if the queen has more than just power? What if she has a plan that could destroy them all? The chaos surged around them, the battle had begun, but the true fight was still hidden in the depths of shadows. The courtyard exploded into a frenzy. Soldiers clashed, cries filled the air, and the stench of sweat and fear mingled with the metallic tang of blood. Hildegard's heart raced as she charged ahead, sword gripped tightly, its weight a reminder of what was at stake. Each step felt like a leap closer to the edge of an abyss. The king's voice rang out, cutting through the chaos. Form ranks. Hold the line. He commanded, his presence like a lighthouse in the storm. Hildegard caught sight of him rallying the defenders, his face fierce, driven by a resolve she had never seen before. But it was Fredegund, behind them, who sent icy tendrils of doubt creeping back into her mind. The queen's magic crackled and twisted, encircling her like a dark halo. Every flick of her wrist made the shadows dart with unnatural life, creating dissonance in the air that only Hildegard could sense. As Fredegund channeled dark energies, they surged toward the battlefield, a slick whip of dark light that danced like a predator stalking its prey. What is she doing? Hildegard whispered, dread nesting in her gut. Trust her. The king shouted as he deflected a sword aimed at his head, but the way his eyes flickered toward Fredegund told a different story. Hildegard felt the ground shake, the air electrified by Fredegund's growing magic. Dark shapes began to form around the perimeter of the courtyard, creeping, shifting like smoke in the wind. The enemy was not just human, they were something else, something born from the depths of nightmare. This isn't just a battle, it's a summoning. She realized, panic rising like bile. The king swung around to face Hildegard, urgency coloring his features. We need to split our forces. Some stay to hold the gates, the rest we must push them back. A guttural roar resonated from the ranks of the enemy, silencing all thoughts. A monstrous figure, draped in shadows and sinew, stepped forward, gleaming with dark enchantments. They were not soldiers, they were demons of war. Hildegard's heart sank as she felt the weight of their stares, cold and hungry. "We can't fight them with blades alone," she shouted over the din, body taut with fear. "We need Fredegund's magic. Then we must convince her to use it." The king replied, determination flooding his voice. "We cannot let fear divide us." With a nod, Hildegard tightened her grip. Together, they cut a path toward Fredegund, who still weaved her dark tapestry of power, her face painted in shadows and obsession. The moment they reached her, their voices merged, desperation lacing every word. "Fredegund. We need you to fight with us, not against us," Hildegard implored, searching for the flicker of the queen beneath the storm of darkness. Fredegund's eyes narrowed, a storm brewing behind those emerald depths. And what if this kingdom is not worth saving? If trust is a fleeting illusion? Her voice dripped poison, and for a heartbeat, Hildegard felt the panic swirling in her chest again. "Trust is all we have," the king shouted, his stance fierce against the encroaching darkness. "Fredegund, please. You can save us." Breathless seconds dragged on, the collision of metal and screeches of pain echoing around them. It felt like a moment stretched thus, time hanging by a thread, but as Hildegard's hope faltered, a glimmer lit within Fredegund's eyes, brimming with conflicting emotions. Would she bend, or would she break? "You want my magic?" Fredegund finally spat, her voice rising above the clamor, dark power crackling around her. "Then you must be prepared to pay the price." Hildegard's chest tightened. What did that mean? What price would they have to bear? But the question slipped from her mind as the battlefield erupted once more, the air thick with terror and screams. The fight was far from over, and darker secrets still yet loomed, threatening more than just their lives. A fierce energy surged around Fredegund, and Hildegard's heart raced in response. Was she about to unleash devastation, or was it something even more sinister? As Fredegund lifted her hands, shadows spiraled and coiled, pushing outward. Like a malevolent tide. A sudden realization struck Hildegard. The battlefield wasn't just a fight for the kingdom, it was a stage for a far more personal battle. The queen's gaze turned calculating as she smirked, fear twisted in Hildegard's gut. What if Fredegund had already chosen sides, and they were nothing more than puppets in her dangerous game? With the enemy advancing, tension crackled like lightning, leaving Hildegard gasping for clarity. The end of this fight would change everything. What price were they unwittingly about to pay? The shadows thickened around Fredegund, pulsing with a life of their own. Each tendril of darkness twisted and turned, curling around her fingers like loyal serpents. Hildegard felt her heart hammering in her chest, confusion mixing with fear. What does she mean? She thought, unwilling to voice the dread that loomed over her like a storm cloud. That price could be our souls. Hildegard blurted out, desperation threading through her words. She could see the buying glimmer of Fredegund's eyes, and for an instant, they looked distant, trapped in some profound inner turmoil. "Do you truly think you can hold this kingdom without sacrifice?" Fredegund shot back, unleashing a wave of energy that sent soldiers stumbling back. Hildegard staggered but reacted quickly, lunging to help steady her king. "We don't have time for this." Around them, the battlefield was chaos incarnate. The demonic figures surged forward, eyes burning with a hunger that filled the very air. Swaths of soldiers fell under the onslaught, their terrified screams sliced through the din of battle. "Incoming!" The king yelled, raising his sword high as a massive demon swung its weapon, reversing the tide of their momentary fight. The impact sent shockwaves through the ground, knocking Hildegard off her feet. As she struggled to rise, she felt hands tugging at her ankle, the shadows. They lashed out, wrapping around her, cold and tight like iron chains. Hildegard gasped, horror blooming in her chest as she was dragged towards the consuming darkness. Fredegund! She shouted, panic rising. Now! The queen hesitated, a flicker of indecision crossing her face. Hildegard fought against the ropes of dark energy, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Do something. We need you. With gritted teeth, Fredegund straightened, a storm of fury engulfing her features. Fine. You want my magic? Then brace yourself for the storm. She swept her arms wide, dark energy exploding forth, morphing into a swirling vortex that crackled with pure chaos. Hildegard felt the air shift, the shadows around her dwindling in the wake of Fredegund's unleashed power. She broke free, stumbling back to her feet as the blast surged, shredding the air with its raw force. Her heart thundered with hope and dread, not knowing what twisted consequences might follow. Sweeping shadows converged upon the demons, their shapes twisting as if contemplating their next move. The air became ominously quiet, a moment of suspension as if the entire battlefield held its breath. Then it erupted. A cacophony of shrieks and howls filled the air, mixing with the cries of men, an unholy chorus. Push forward. The king ordered, charging into the fray, emboldened by the queen's dark magic. Hildegard joined him, adrenaline coursing through her veins as she swung her sword. Every slice felt like a strike against the very fabric of darkness closing in on them, but in the back of her mind, a chilling thought lingered: what if they were only prolonging their doom? Each blow connected with a demon felt less like victory and more like a scrambling for the inevitable. Fredegund, Hildegard shouted, catching sight of her again amid the chaos. The queen was consumed by her magic, eyes glinting dangerously. You have to. But before she could finish, Fredegund turned, her eyes intensifying, shadows coiling around her. Let them come, she hissed, voice husky with power. If this kingdom falls, so be it. They will learn the price of betrayal. A gasp rippled through the soldiers, hesitation creeping in. Were they truly fighting for survival, or had they already lost their chance? Hildegard felt the chill grip her spine. I want, let us fall. She yelled, defiance replacing fear as she rushed forward. But in the back of her mind, she couldn't shake off the lingering question: what had Fredegund truly set into motion? And who would be left standing when the darkness finally lifted? Raw energy surged from the queen, beckoning waves of shadow and flame as the ground shook beneath them. The real battle was just beginning, and its outcome remained uncertain. Would they emerge victorious, or would shadows swallow them whole? A roar erupted from the enemy lines, echoing eerily as they surged ahead once more. Hildegard braced herself, heart pounding, gaze locked on Fredegund, the wild card of their fate. What moment would tip the balance? As weapons clashed and darkness swelled, she realized decisions would soon turn into deadly choices. What if the real battle wasn't just against the demons, but against the very woman they believed would save them? The ground trembled beneath their feet, signaling that the answer was imminent. The next move would change everything. What would be gained and what would be lost? The battlefield was a storm of chaos, the air thick with cries of despair and the clash of metal. Hildegard's heart raced as she fought her way through the relentless tide of demons. Shadows loomed, grasping at her ankles like the ghosts of the past, desperate to pull her down into the abyss. Though their armies clashed, doubt gnawed at the edges of her spirit. Where was Fredegund's power leading them? From across the chaos, she saw the queen, surrounded by a shimmering veil of dark energy. Power surged through Fredegund like a tempest, and in that moment, she seemed both beautiful and terrifying. Hildegard felt a chill run down her spine as the queen shot waves of magic toward their enemies, consuming them in blackened flames. But the victory came at a cost. The laughter that erupted from Fredegund's lips was hollow, echoing across the battlefield like a curse. No! Hildegard shouted. You're losing control. But Fredegund's eyes gleamed with that feral, wild light. She was caught in a dance of destructive magic. And the cost of that control would soon be brought to bear. As the last demon fell beneath the storm forged by the queen, a deafening silence descended, leaving only the crackle of embers and the groans of the wounded. The king stood with sword raised high, his voice trembling with a mix of triumph and fear. "We have repelled them." His voice echoed in disbelief, yet the shadows around Fredegund began to bend, twisting in inexplicable anguish. But at what cost? In that moment, Hildegard knew they had survived a battle, but the war was far from over. With between them a truth heavier than the shadows, they had not just lost lives, they had lost something more precious, a sense of trust that had bound them together. "Fredegund, it's time to face what you've done," Hildegard shouted, swiping her weapon toward the queen, desperate to see a glimmer of the woman she used to serve so loyally. Yet Fredegund laughed, her voice like ice chips breaking apart in the sun. "Did you expect any less?" Her gaze flashed, and the shadows around her morphed into shapes that twisted and writhed with grotesque intent. "You think love can bind a kingdom? It takes power. Sacrifice. I've forged our future with blood." The king stepped forward, brow furrowed and expression fierce. "You've endangered our people for your own ambition." His voice cracked, heartbreak bleeding into his determination. "Is this the ruler you want to be? Is this who you are?" For a brief instant, doubt crossed Fredegund's face, her grip faltering on her power. But then the darkness filled the void of uncertainty, a response like an echo of the void growing louder. "This is not about love," she hissed, her features contorting wildly. "This is about strength. You are a fool to think I will turn back." Hildegard felt a weight in her chest, the delicate threads of resolve unraveling. "Fredegund, please. Look." She pointed toward the remnants of the battlefield, bodies scattered and the few surviving townsfolk aiding the wounded. "Look at what you've done. Do these lives matter to you? Can't you see love is the only power worth wielding?" Fredegund's laughter faded, replaced by a flicker of something more profound, remorse. But it morphed too quickly into rage. "No. You believe in fairy tales." She raised her hand again, lethal energy curling around her fingers like a snake preparing to strike. "I will protect what's mine at any cost." As shadows drew near, enveloping her in darkness, Hildegard made a desperate choice. "Then you leave me no choice," she cried, feeling the surge of her own magic blazing from deep within. She pushed against the shadows, forcing her way toward the queen. "Don't," the king warned as Fredegund advanced, but you could see he was torn. He had witnessed how treachery cloaked itself in love, choking out truth with every whispered promise. Could they save their queen from herself? With a powerful thrust, Hildegard summoned every ounce of strength left in her, a glowing light that pierced through the darkness around them. "Fredegund," she shouted one last time. "This isn't. You are queen because of love, not this maddening thirst for power." Fredegund paused. Inner turmoil played across her features, a hand raised against the bright pulse spreading like sunlight across the bleak battlefield. For a moment, time felt like it stood still, as if the universe itself held its breath. Then the light pushed outward, flooding the courtyard, washing over the shadows in a sweeping surge. Fredegund stumbled back, the darkness recoiling, pain etched on her face. "No!" she screamed, the veil of power slipping from her grasp. Hildegard felt herself breaking through the barrier of fear's old wound, subduing the fight inside her. With her heart racing, she reached for Fredegund, stepping through the remnants of darkness. "It's not too late. We can be stronger together, as we always were." Tears welled in Fredegund's eyes as rage pooled into defeat. "I chose power," she gasped, but as the light washed over her, she could no longer hide behind its veil, nor cling to the darkness. What if power isn't enough? As the darkness waned, Hildegard saw the woman buried beneath the throne of shadows, a queen who had lost her way, teetering on the edge of oblivion. "You can choose, Fredegund. Love over betrayal. Redemption over lust for power. Be the queen we need, not the one we fear." In that moment, the battle was not won by the blade but by the choice to put aside fear and embrace an unforgiving truth. The light enveloped Fredegund, pushing back the shadows, urging her to emerge as her true self. The king stepped forward, his voice steady with conviction. Together, we can rebuild Neustria. We'll stand united not just as rulers, but as a family. Fredegund's shoulders heaved, darkness swirling around her, fighting for dominance. But a flicker of light surfaced from beneath her hardened facade, a soft smile breaking through. For the people, she whispered, and the shadows began to dissipate. Yes, for Neustria. Just like that, the air shifted, a palpable change rippling through the battlefield as the last remnants of darkness faded. The soldiers, both weary and battle-worn, looked up, wonder replacing fear. They hadn't fought for power or ambition, they had clung to hope, the true magic that would guide them home. In that moment of clarity, the three stood together, a trio united in purpose, ready to build anew from the ashes of betrayal. With the sun rising over Neustria, a dawn of hope unfolded, a future brighter than any shadows could ever obscure. As they embraced the warmth of a new beginning, Hildegard knew their journey was far from finished, but they would face it together. With hearts reborn, they had chosen love not as a weapon, but as a path toward understanding, and thus, they stepped forward, hand in hand, ready to reclaim the kingdom they held dear. That's it for now, but we're just getting started. If you want to keep following along with amazing stories like this, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on our next exclusive content. Smash that like button to help out the algorithm and flood the comments section with your thoughts on the ending and your theories about what's next. And for sure, don't forget to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.